Hello and welcome to the Kratom Sobriety podcast. My name is Nolan. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with Desiree. Hello, Desiree.
Hi, I'm glad to be back.
So, this is episode 135, and I interviewed Marilyn, who lost her husband, Matt, to she has a lot of very powerful things to say. We'll hear from her in a minute, but in the meantime, Desiree and I wanted to talk a little bit about cravings and some of our best practices for getting over those cravings.
Being sober, I am able to be more aware of my cravings and my triggers, right? So, obviously, when we're in our addiction, it's hard to identify those because we're just in that cycle. So, when we get sober, we're able to identify it a little bit more, is what I've been able to realize. And so, I notice the times that my cravings come on. It's in the mornings. So, in the mornings, and when I do encounter cravings, I usually will it's just a little gesture, a little, like, trick, but I will drink bubbly drinks. So, for whatever reason, I will drink that, and I think it's because I used to drink those a lot when I was using kratom. So, that tricks my mind a little bit into, "Okay, you're drinking something, it's relation to what I used to do." That helps a lot. Calling my sponsor helps. Running, walking outside helps a lot too, like going in the sun for sure. And I've picked up a little bit of exercising, so that helps too.
Very creative ways of dealing with it too. I love the bubbly water one. So much of cravings is just this intensely psychological minefield where you're convinced that this thing was keeping you safe. So
Mhm.
the idea that something like bubbly water can act as a stand-in for those cravings is pretty cool.
Mm.
But one thing that really worked for me is whenever I would have cravings, I would treat those addictive thoughts like this annoying little toddler asking for something that it wasn't going to get. And then I would be the parent. And then sometimes in a very loud voice inside my own head, I'd say, like, no, you're not getting that lollipop, or you're not getting that. I wouldn't
Oh,
use the word lollipop, of course, but I would just say, no, you're not
yeah,
getting that. And that helped a lot because it helped minimize the perceived impact of the cravings.
I like that because it puts it into perspective. Like, it's almost as if you have an image in your head of, okay, I cannot take this. If you say lollipop or whatever it is, as in, I can't have that. So it gives you an image and perspective, and you're able to handle it a little bit. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, thanks. And there's so many other things you can do. Desiree mentioned getting outside. That's a really big one. So, whatever you can do to distract yourself from the immediate severity of the cravings, do it. Definitely take advantage because the more that you sit still, if you're in your bed, sitting around waiting, bored, boredom is the killer. Boredom is what will get you. And it's much easier to reach for your powder or your capsules when there's nothing keeping you from doing that, like being outside, going on a walk. And if you can't go on a walk, if you can socialize, go attend a meeting. Communities like churches are great for things like that. Just being active in your community, whatever that may be, is very helpful.
Yeah. And one thing too, I think voicing it. Sometimes, like, we don't want to say it, but I think, and what I've experienced is voicing it, like making people aware, "Hey, I'm having cravings," or just allowing it not to fester up inside of us, like, just voicing it is a big is that's a simple thing that we can do too. It's actually simple, but it's really hard to do as well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's very simple, but it's hard to do. You put that very well. And
Yeah.
then one thing that also worked for me was just essentially brainwashing myself. And whenever I'd have a craving, I would say to myself, I never needed that. I was never dependent on that. I never, I never wanted it in the first place. And that helped
Mm,
a lot.
they're good little tools.
Good little tools. Anyway, anything else you want to leave off with, Desiree?
No, I think we're good.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me. Looking forward to this interview with Marilyn. As always, stay strong, kratom quitters. Again, as I said in the last episode, if you would like to be on our podcast, if you would like to come and speak with us, please send an email to Charlie or to our podcast or get in touch with us via socials. Anyway, thank you so much. And till next time.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Kratom Sobriety podcast. My name is Nolan. Today we have a special episode. Marilyn is going to be sharing her story. So how are you doing, Marilyn?
Doing all right. Thank you for having me.
Of course. How would you introduce yourself?
My name's Marilyn. I was married to Matt, who developed the issue with kratom, or kratom, however you want to pronounce it.
Firstly, amazing that you're sharing your story and you're coming on here to talk with us about this, because I know it's probably been a very long road for you. Just tell me a little bit about him, about your loved one.
His name was Matt. He was a chef most of his life. He's born in Florida, skater boy. We met through a mutual friend at a place that we used to frequent around here, and I went just quickly, and we were pretty much a done deal after we met. And then we ended up having 3 kids, and so where we pretty much just the ups and downs of marriage and life, and but both of us were just, we fought through it. I mean, he's awesome. Like I said, he was a chef. He also played the drums. I feel he was a great drummer. I don't think he gave himself enough credit, but he did have the opportunity to film a video and record a little bit, and so he did some of that, which was awesome. And he was just a good, just low key person. And he's loved music, specifically metal. That's one of our connections, is definitely that. And that's that. Now, he struggled with being a chef in the kitchen in the restaurant industry. It's pretty common to struggle with alcoholism. So he did struggle. So we chose to work on that and treat it as a family thing. So we always talked about that with the kids and just to educate them on those things. And then so we worked through it as a family recovery. So he struggled with that. He got back in before he moved here to North Carolina, he had lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for a bit, and he got into a really bad car accident. And he developed chronic pain in his back. And when we addressed that, we addressed it with the doctor, and they put him on tramadol. And the doctor assured us that tramadols were not addictive. So I guess it would have been probably like at this time, probably about 9, 10 years ago. And so he started taking those, and when he realized he was developing a dependence on those, and we had talked about it, and he started researching it. He was getting scared about the things that he was coming across when he was researching, like people withdrawals from tramadols and these side effects of tramadols. And so it scared him. And so we discussed it, and he said that he wanted to try to find something, an alternative. And so that's how we found kratom. And we just looked online, and it was marketed as safe and natural. And we were like, let's give it a try. And so we ordered some because it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And so we ordered it, and he tried it, and it seemed to do, it was great starting out. It didn't affect him in any kind of way. He was functional. You wouldn't never known he was on it. And so it was great. It was working. It did the trick, and he had been on it ever since.
A lot of the people we speak to, when kratom or kratom, or I know we pronounce it every which way here, tends to come into the lives of some of the people that we've interviewed, it seems to be very tame. And I know it's only
Correct.
later on that it can rear a different side of its personality. If you want to go into that, after you learned about it and you first experienced him try it, how did it progress from there?
Over time, as he continued taking it, there was some things with his health that were off, and not alcohol related, and it was just like these sudden changes. He occasionally he had seizures, and then he had some, well, with that, we were actually, when we were getting that checked out, I should say, after the first after the second one, I think. After we were getting those checked out, he went to a neurologist. He was getting his heart checks. I think we just followed up with our primary and they put him on seizure meds eventually. And then they just monitored his heart and we had regular checkups with the heart doctor and it just escalated from there. So we never knew. And we just thought maybe he was developing heart issues and we're getting a little older and everything. And but then over the course of 7 or 8 years, I always had my suspicions, but you never know for sure. And not a doctor or a scientist or anything. I was like, just something's not right. Something wasn't right. He left the kitchen to come home and work with me before he passed away, the last is almost, it would have been about 3 years. And so he could go back to school and just focus on himself and to get him out of that atmosphere and just to do something different because he was done with all that. But that's when I noticed, and that's when I really got the suspicions going. I was just like, something's not right because he started running and he started taking very good care of himself. His body was in great health. He was sober. He didn't take he didn't drink, he didn't take illegal drugs, he didn't take and he the only medications he was on was his health maintenance medications, heart, cholesterol, things like that, that he was actually working towards getting off of. But he was in great health and he lost weight because both of us had went on that journey together, just pulling it together for ourselves and just in great shape. There was the I said I was my suspicions were really like coming into play because I noticed that he was getting shaky. I was getting concerned because I noticed that here and there he would have the shakes. He was jittery, and let me see, he was jittery. I felt that he was on edge a lot. He became on edge a good bit, and just little things like that, and that that kind of became hard. Just some hard things to deal with because for me as a wife and just being concerned about his overall health and everything and it was just really it was really just hard because you always felt like something was going on, but you didn't know what. And he always felt like he was fine. He was like, I'm good.
Marilyn,
So
I know you mentioned to me that he was taking primarily powdered kratom. Is that right?
yes, that's what he started on, and he's a creature of habit. So even though he experimented maybe with capsules, and then I think he experimented. We did find one of the shots after the fact, and this is after he passed away, in a book bag. So he apparently experimented with that, but it was definitely the powder form. That's how he started. That's for the most part how he was like cost effective wise. I laugh because I think about but cost effective wise too, that would be the way he would think. So
Yes. The extract shots, I know from
mm,
other people we've had on, or especially the kava kratom tonics, we get people spending sometimes upwards of $10,000 or $20,000 a year, which is pretty astronomical. It would be great
yeah.
to just have you tell the whole story, what happened, how it happened, and then we'll move on to the
Are
rest
we
of the
talking about
questions,
him
like
passing away?
and then we'll talk about advocacy, how you're feeling, your response to
Yeah.
all this. Is that okay? Okay.
I've had to tap into that. So I compartmentalize things.
Yes, it
So
must be very
I've
hard.
had to tackle I've had to I like to just put things in a box, lock them up, and not address them until I have to. So
Yes.
I've been spending a few days really thinking about that, and
And if at any point you
yeah,
want to stop
you're gonna have to give me a
or
minute.
yes, or if you don't want to talk about it, we can just move on to the rest of the questions.
I can. No,
Okay.
I feel that it's very important. Actually, I feel that it's very important. So Matt tended to take it at night. So before he went to bed. And although I know that he had taken it periodically through the days, but I feel but at night that was taking, he takes it before he goes to bed thinking that. So that night he, he took it. And then I had, through the medics and doctors and everything, after a few of the seizures, I had to learn how to handle the seizures. And they were violent. I don't know what you would even call that kind of seizure since this was now that we know that it was definitely a kratom-induced seizure. So I don't know what you would call it, but it was violent. He doesn't remember them. He he never he didn't remember them. He didn't know when they were coming on. And when he came to, he didn't remember even I could hear him. So what I'm getting at is that they were violent and I could hear him. So when he went into seizure, I could hear him upstairs and I would just run upstairs, this is what happened. I ran upstairs and I would get him on his side in the bed and I would just hold him. I would just hold him until it would stop. I realized real quick because Maddox, my son, he wanted to be quick to call 911 and I just told him to hold off a second, let me get this. And because he snapped out of him before. But this time I realized real quick he was on his last breath and I was holding him and he wasn't his body wasn't moving anymore. And I held him and then I as soon as I realized that he was like on his last breath, I went and I got him on his back real quick because he was too heavy for me to get off the bed. So by myself, and I didn't want my kids to walk in there, my son to walk in there. And so I got him on his back and I tried to do my best at CPR, which I advise anybody to learn CPR if you can. There are resources for that, but very important. And fortunately, my neighbor heard my son on the phone, and my son went outside. He was waiting on the medics to come and everything. And so my neighbor ran up, and he helped me get him on the floor. And I continued to try to give him admit CPR, and somebody else got here to take over, and I couldn't get him back. And so the firemen showed up, and then they took over and the medics showed up and the police showed up and they all took over and I just remember I was pacing and then they ask you all the questions. What did was he on anything? He and the thing is with them is since kratom's not well known and is marketed as a natural supplement, they still didn't really know they didn't know what I was talking about when I was like, that's the only thing that I could think of that he took. That's what I told them. And otherwise but that didn't really settle with them. But they administered, I think, Narcan, trying to get him to come back. They had sat there with the machine, tried to, you don't have to, if you remember what it's called, I don't remember what it's called, but trying to bring him back probably for at least 30 minutes. It seemed like forever. And they couldn't get him back. And we ended up rushing him to the hospital and he was pronounced dead on site. And my oldest daughter, she's now 20. She rushed home, and as he was getting admitted to the medic truck, she was running up because she knew she was just overwhelmed with the emotion of what was happening, and the kids were because we have three. She was 19 at the time when it happened, and then 15 and 9 or 8 at the time, and that's how that all happened. He was pronounced dead when I rushed to the hospital behind the medics. And as soon as I got there, the doctor pulled me in and I knew right away. And it's like one of those experiences that you're like, is this really happening right now? It's surreal. And it was surreal. The whole thing still is when I think about it because it's still just.
Thank you for sharing that, Marilyn. And I can only imagine how much shock you must have been in. So you're very brave for not only reliving that and telling it, but also doing some good kind of in honor. So that's very noble of you. And I
Okay.
guess that kind of leads us to our next point, which is about how long did it take for you, or at what point did you decide to start speaking up about kratom?
I couldn't do anything immediately. No. I knew that like I had my thoughts. I was suspicious of it but I knew that there's so much information that goes out that's not solid and I didn't want to contribute to that. So I told myself, I said, if this comes back, because I knew that they ran the toxicology and autopsy and everything. I told myself, if this comes back and it, this was actually what caused the seizures and the death and everything, then I'm going to do something with it. And I told myself his story's not over yet, and we're going to make good of this, and that it does have dangers to it. So when I got the reports back, it was crazy because I got the reports back and it brought back out a sense of anger over it that it could even do that. Just the whole I'm still going through it. It hasn't even been a year yet. It's been a roller coaster of emotion. And but when I got those reports confirming that, I was just like, man, and then it just brought to me the just knowing that it's available everywhere now and how mainstream it's become. Yeah.
So what changes do you think the industry would benefit from when it comes to marketing the product, selling the product, introducing it into the mainstream diet?
So I've thought about that a lot actually, because I try to think of things from a centered, balanced point of view with everything. And I feel much like alcohol and marijuana, I feel for some people it's okay. But I also feel like for others that it's not okay. And so it's really hard. So part of me and just wants to see regulations on it. But then with this happening and losing my husband like in my arms, I that part of me wants to see it banned. And so I it's both, and I definitely feel that it needs to be researched. It needs to, and I do feel like somebody out like that, the way it does that, that part of me wants to see it banned, but at the same time, I feel like that there are people that can do it responsibly. And that it does, like when you start out, it does have initially, it did have a it did serve its purpose. It's a really I just feel like it's a really there's a fine line with it right now.
Definitely. And that's a very you have a very mature and reasonable and logical weighing of this,
Thank you.
this reaction to it, because I wouldn't be surprised if after the kind of magnitude of these events you were completely
Yeah.
one-sided about it. So the notion that you're considering both and you're saying who is it helping, who is it hurting, who's using it
Mhm.
responsibly, who's not, how can we put all these pieces together and see what to do about it? I think that's amazing. So I
Yeah.
guess the next thing I wanted to ask is, what's the response like when you share your story to maybe to loved ones or to
Mhm.
other outlets? Is it one of shock? Is it one of maybe people don't know anything about kratom, or what's your thoughts on that?
All of the above. So I haven't had any negative reaction. I've had people reach out that have had experience that to share their stories with it. I've had people that knew about it, but they didn't know anything about the basically the news that's been coming out about it, like those sorts of experiences. I've had people tell me that they've been using it recreationally, and then I've also had people tell me that they had the similar struggle that we had with it. And I one of them, the one person that reached out to me that had the similar struggle with their husband said that fortunately, if I remember correctly, she said that he was finally able to quit cold turkey, and that he said that it was probably one of the hardest struggles that he had. And like alcohol and drugs are a struggle. I've been in and out of helping people with recovery over the years, and that's a struggle. But this one's something different and more justifiable because you can function, and it's not unlike with alcohol and drugs, you tend not to be able to function when you are, and I'm talking from an addiction standpoint now, but when you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, not typically able to function. But with kratom, it's different. Kratom, you're functional. Like Matt did all the things. He was working. He was helping me take care of kids. He was amazing. He was when he was staying home with me, and he cooked, he cleaned, he did all the things, and he was there. He was present, and that's what's so crazy about it. And but from a health standpoint, it's whoa, it can cause weight loss, it causes the wiredness, the jitters, the appetite suppressant, the yes, it can cause seizures now that I know that from experience. I have reports to prove it. It's crazy.
It is, it really
It's
is.
wild.
And
Mhm.
kind of what you were mentioning earlier is that being marketed as this sort of natural alternative
Yeah.
to pain relief, an energy solution. I think it
Hmm.
attracts a crowd that's completely unaware of
Yeah.
what kratom is capable of doing, and it
Yeah.
gets people addicted, and before they know it, they're
Hmm.
dependent and they suffer withdrawals, and in the case of Matt, seizures and unforeseen consequences. So I think
Hmm.
on that, do you think that enough is being done to educate people about kratom addiction, withdrawal? Is there anything that you wish people knew before they started taking it?
Right now, I wish that I knew about you guys last a year ago, and that I believe is amazing. So to me, I feel like it's just beginning. I feel that I feel like we're at the beginning of it, of bringing the awareness and everything to it, and I'm all for it. So
That's very kind. And I think that more groups are starting to pop up, recovery
yeah,
communities and things like that. And it's great having you on here to share your story so that other people are aware of just how
yeah.
severe the consequences can be, how it affects not just the people who are using it, but the lives of those that are touched by them. So that's very kind of you to come on here. And then have you been in contact with any lawmakers or organizations, or do you plan on being an advocate in the community in any sort of way? Because I know you're already sharing your story, and that is so much. Even just that alone is incredible.
For me, sharing my story is going to be the biggest way that I can contribute because that's what I do and what I'm acclimated to anyway. I feel like I've been doing it in other areas too that we had struggled with, or not just him, but my own personal struggles. But so it's just something that I felt called to do. Now I've reached out to a North Carolina representative, and I also reached out federally. Just I got some initial emails through. I got a general response from North Carolina. I never did get a response from the federal government. I don't even know to contact really in that area, to be honest with you. But just trying to start somewhere. But in all honesty, I haven't gotten to the point where I've had the time to dive into areas like that yet. But I do feel like I initially said, sharing my stories, that's pretty much starters for me. And then as I can contribute in the other areas, I will. And if my story helps for them to make the decision, that's I'm good with that too.
I think that's fantastic because I think that as long as companies are able to make a significant amount of money off of these products,
Yeah.
there's little to no incentive unless there is real kind of meaningful pushback. And I think that
Mhm.
as the kind of news ecosystem becomes saturated with stories like yours, I think that over time can have a kind of snowball effect. So I think that that's great that you're doing that. So I guess moving on,
Thank you.
because having it's been almost a year, right?
It's going to be a year. It's crazy. It's going to be a year, May 25th, and it's been a wild year,
I'm
so for
sure it
sure.
has. I'm sure it has. Now that you've had this time to think about it, what kind of advice might you give to someone who's watching a loved one maybe struggle with kratom use or dependence?
So I actually thought about that, and I'm thinking from Matt's point of view. So I feel that if he were here, he would tell somebody to get help. I think that would be his first. I really feel like that would I feel like he would say, "Seek God, get help, and whatever help that you can to get off this because it's tough. It's a tough one." And I would concur with that. Get the help that you can.
Yeah,
So I just feel if Matt was here, he would tell somebody to seek God and get help, hands down. And I would concur with him, and because I know I saw him, and he wanted so badly to. He tried. He made numerous attempts, try to like slow down and taper off and do that, and he had a hard time coming off of it, but you get help. And in the recovery aspect of it, one of the hard things that we struggle with as the family of somebody, because I had my dads were alcoholics as well. So one of the struggles that we have as a family of somebody that's struggling with some sort of addiction, and this goes for anything, is that if the person doesn't want to seek help, there's not really anything that you can do except hope and pray about it. And you can encourage them all day, but until they're ready, they're not. And I hate to say that, but if you're the person that is struggling with it, I definitely hope and pray that you will seek help in
That's very
whatever way, shape, or form.
that's very good advice. And I think for those that are addicted and that fall into it, there can be
Mhm.
a lot of shame in it. I think
Yes.
it goes against who people might feel they are. For example, not to talk too much about myself, but when I got addicted, I thought of myself as very academic, very sporty. And I think it didn't quite click when I became addicted. I thought, this is not who I am. I don't want to tell
Mhm.
people about it. So for those that are
Mhm.
addicted, I think that there can be a lot of shame in it. So if you take your
Very.
attitude and apply it to all of the loved ones who are watching their loved ones struggle with kratom addiction, it can help a lot.
It does. And I want to talk to the families too. So, just the families actually, because I know for myself that early on I had struggled. I struggled with shame as well because we shut down. I know, like for me, I became just very sheltered. And because I love my husband and he's my main project, that's my main person. And you want to be there and you want to help them and everything. But with that, you end up, and I'm just relating to the families of, but with that, you tend to hold yourself back too. And you end up, everything becomes all about them and not. So it's really important if if you're the one who is loving the person that's struggling, it's really important to make sure you are taking care of yourself too, because you can lose yourself in it and it's tough to come out of.
Absolutely. It's especially in very close partnerships where you're
Yeah.
relying on each other so much to be
Yeah.
strong and to keep up with
Yeah.
finances and childcare
Mhm.
and the dog
Mhm.
and everything. The dog. We love him to bits.
Yes.
But it could be a lot. And I think
Yeah.
that's great advice trying to take care of yourself. Because I know a lot of people don't have great support systems even to begin with. So if you're without a support system, if you don't have any loved
Mhm.
ones, then just trying to take advantage of as many
Yeah.
resources as you can. So whether that be this podcast,
Yeah.
whether that be addiction recovery facilities, anything like that is can be very helpful.
Definitely. And I'm just grateful for Matt and I's relationship because when I think back to it, we really did, like, we fought together. And I'm so freaking grateful for our kids because our kids are fighters too, and just having the relationship that we had with them has been really helpful in their healing process because they grew with us too through it, and we treated everything as a family, age appropriately with them, of course. But I'm just grateful that we were able to, even though it ended the way it did, we were able to fight through it all together, and we did what we could. And unfortunately, it happened the way it did, but I do believe that I personally have a deep faith, and he ended up as well. I believe in doing good with whatever lesson that you can pull from it, and that's why I'm here. So,
That's amazing. And it's because I know you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, that Matt's story isn't over. And I'm sure
mhm,
that's one of the biggest
mhm.
reasons for you to keep raising awareness and sharing that story. So maybe
Yeah,
just a
absolutely.
couple more questions here, and then we'll maybe end off on something a little bit more lighthearted. What do you like to do for fun?
Okay.
Or
All right.
so this is one I was curious to hear your perspective on. If you could sit
Okay.
down with someone who believes that kratom is completely harmless, what would you maybe say to them?
I would say it can start that way. I'd say be careful and probably tiptoe into it and pay very close attention to any signs. Knowing what we know now about it, I just I would educate them if I on my experience. And like I said, stories are powerful. I feel like there's power in your story. And I feel like, I shared my story. You could take what you want and leave the rest, and but hopefully it would plant some seeds as to, hey, this can have a negative effect if it goes too far. I think that's pretty much where I would leave it. And mm, no, I wouldn't leave it there. I would say I would have to use because the extreme is death. So, and I would, but if you want to venture into it, then you would just tiptoe into it. So,
I think that's a great I think that's a great way to put it.
yeah,
And I really liked how you started out by saying it starts that way. It starts as harmless and it
yeah,
starts as benign.
yeah,
And that, for most people, is where the trouble really begins because they can't see the
yeah.
future. None of us who become addicted or dependent could see the future.
And I wanted to say that too is and just like this being a natural alternative as it's marketed as, and technically, I guess you could say that, but there's no addiction doesn't pick and choose. You could be young, you can be old, you can be rich, you can be poor, you can have your stuff together, not have your stuff together. And this being marketed the way it's marketed, I mean, it's going to go and it is going in all different directions of people dealing with different. I know one of the people that reached out said that somebody gave them a shot just for stress relief. But it was just an example of what different people start taking it for. And it's like, it doesn't pick and choose.
It definitely does
So
not discriminate. Absolutely
yeah,
not. And
no,
we've had doctors, we've had lawyers, we've had mothers, sons, old, young. It really doesn't discriminate. And I think
mm-mm.
the idea that it looks as much like matcha powder as it does is it's a great way for people to feel fearless when they're looking at it and
Yeah.
trying it for the first time. So I guess if there is there anything you'd want Kratom users or advocates or people who are thinking about trying it to take away from this conversation?
To take my story seriously. If and I'm even as open to you can look things up now, but I'm even open to just if you don't believe me, let me show you. And if it came to that, but I just take it seriously. Look, yes, it can be helpful maybe in the right hands, but it also can be dangerous in other hands. And we need to try to find went the regulation route, like just find a happy or not, it's not going to be a happy place, but find some compromise, I guess is probably the word I'm looking for with it. And but take it seriously that it can be dangerous. It's not dangerous. So it can definitely be dangerous. And I really just feel it's the both and. It's both and I feel like that's where I'm initially there was yes the anger and everything about it. But I feel like now I'm at a place where I'm a little bit more balanced about it and I see it as a both and. But I really do that as far as the advocates go. Please take it seriously that it can be dangerous as well.
Very good point. And I know it can be tough for a lot of people that have never heard about it before or who are
Mm,
trying it for the first time to fully take any of this stuff that's
yeah.
coming out about it as credible because it's relatively new, but it
Mhm,
is just as serious.
mhm,
It is just as serious as anything else, any other
yeah.
drug or opioid crisis. And I think it should be treated with a
Mhm,
degree of severity. If people like Marilyn are losing a loved one or they're going through
yeah.
this immense period of struggle because of this
Mhm,
I don't think that it's something that should be brushed off or overlooked. So, Marilyn, thank you so
yeah.
very much
Absolutely.
for coming on
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
for sharing your story. Is there anything else you want to leave off with or anything else you wanted to mention that you didn't get to?
No, I feel like as far as that goes, that's it. But just I really feel like anybody that approaches it, just really educate yourself about it and learn about it before you step into it.
Definitely. Again, thank you so much, Marilyn.
You're
Very
welcome.
brave of you and very of you to come on here and share your story. But until
Absolutely.
next time.
All right. Thank you.